Thank you for joining me on my Final Fantasy XII The Zodiac Age review. I haven't completed this game, so I'm not going to score it, but give you a list of pros and cons as usual, so that you can make a decision on whether or not you want to try this game, or even to pick it back up. Well, let's get right into it.
Shut the fuck up!
So first off, I'll give a brief summary of the game, or at least as brief as I can possibly make it. Your main character for this game is Vaughn, an annoying orphan with brother issues who goes around his city stealing everyone's supply of hair gel for a living. Okay, so the last part's a bit misleading, but you are a thief, and his hair, come rain or shine, shall remain forever unmoving. Also, for a kid who was an orphan, and is now mooching off his best friend and her family, this kid is the richest person in the city. I shit you not, this kid is dressed from chest to toe in jewelry and gems, and the only other person that's decked out in this entire story like that, even close to it, is the princess. Crazy, right? Anywho, the story goes that in the land of Ivalice, the two biggest empires of Arcadia and Rosaria are at a constant war with each other. Eventually, through some shady politics, Arcadia annexes a small kingdom between the two called Damasca. If Ivalice sounds familiar to you, that's because it's the land of all the Final Fantasy Tactics games. In fact, the game has been confirmed by Square Enix to happen before the events of the Tactics games. Now, moving right along, our main character, Vaughn, one day decides he's going to steal from the palace during the banquet that's being held for the consul, who for the most part of our story is assumed to be the main antagonist. Your character gets into some trouble whenever the resistance starts attacking the palace, and he eventually ends up trying to escape through the sewers with the help of the former Damascan princess and two sky pirates. The story tends to jump around a bit after and before, but eventually your main character, who's been trying to run away from his kingdom forever, joins the princess, Ash, who enlists the help of thieves to try and retake her throne from the Arcadian Empire. Much later on in the story, you'll find out that it isn't quite as it seems, but we'll talk about that a bit after running by some pros and cons. Now, starting off with our pros, I have to say that they finally fixed this piece of shit game. No, seriously, this is one of the two Final Fantasy games that I refused to play in the past. But now with all the changes in here, it makes for a pretty fun experience, which is awesome because I really like the story being told in this one. It's pretty much the last coherent Final Fantasy story we've received in one of these games. Moving on, I want to mention this game is so much easier, but not in a bad way though. There's a lot of things that were changed for the game. As a matter of fact, it might be more true to call this game a reboot rather than a remake. While there's still the goofy battle style, yes, the gameplay was designed off of American football. So if you can imagine that in an RPG, then you might be able to take a guess why so many people hated this entry originally. Honestly, besides Final Fantasy XIII, I don't think there was another Final Fantasy that people agreed to hate more. The main new feature for this game that fixes nearly everything is the new job system. One of the worst things in its previous build was that you had to save up points and buy a license off of a sort of skill board for the ability to use skills, spells, and items. Everyone was thrown onto the same board, so it just kind of became a clusterfuck where you had to map out where your ultimate skills were and buy worthless things for your character so that you could get those skills, which were pretty much required to beat any of the bosses moving on further into the game. And the ultimate ability was one of the things on the board only one person could buy, which made the board system even more of a wreck. Hell, I had the strategy guide for this game, and there still wasn't a good way to map out the board. So, yeah, like I said, pretty much the main reason for hating this game in the first place, and fixed, luckily. Anyways, this new job system corrected that problem, and with giving you classes that had their own boards to move upon, and while you're still not able to use items, skills, and magic without purchasing them off the board, this makes it significantly more feasible. Your characters get to have 2 boards in total after you receive your first Esper, which is this world's summons. So you can plan out how you want to build each character from the start. However, you do need to keep in mind that the ultimate abilities and your Espers are still a one-time purchase. So if you have more than one character that you're building on the same job, you will need to be aware of the board, seeing as they'll be taken away from each other. But like I said, there's 2 different ones, so chances are you're not going to lock yourself out of getting an ultimate. And when I say ultimate, I mean the quickening skills. They are what I consider your ultimate abilities, considering, you really need them to finish off big bosses and such. It's what is going to account for, 80% of your damage in boss fights. Another awesome thing about this reboot is the music. Honestly, Final Fantasy XII has some of the weakest music on its own. However, within the game, the music works beautifully, which is something Square Enix has luckily always gotten right. For this remake, they redid all the music with a live orchestra, and it turned out quite impressive. You'll love how even the smallest of scenes connects with the orchestra playing in the background. And what I mean for this kind of being like the weakest of music is basically there's several other Final Fantasies where I've gone out and gotten the music too, because I want to listen to it because it's so amazing and epic. But this is really the first one where I didn't. Though, like I said, at the same time, it works so well with with what you're doing and the places that you're going through. And one of my favorite new features in this game, which has also been the cause of a lot of grief at times as well, is the fast forward feature. Now in the game, you can press L1 to speed up your movements and actions. This doesn't affect the music or cutscenes, so you can abuse the hell out of it with a little negative effect. However, as mentioned, it caused me some grief with leading to some instant kills from things I couldn't handle. Well, I mean, it wasn't necessarily instant kills just because it was moving so fast it happened in an instant. You can't pull out easily at 4 times normal speed. Where this feature really shines at is grinding, however. When I played the game in 2006 originally, I absolutely hated grinding in it, mostly because I felt combat was where this game was the shit. Like, was shit, not the shit, was shit. But now the 4 times mode, you can just set up your gambits and move them around the whole map in a matter of seconds. Another great pro for this game that happens to be part of the reason it's easier is the items. In the previous build, treasure chests were horribly scarce, and picking up some random chest in starting point A could mean you weren't getting a certain ultimate weapon or a certain Esper. In this game, as far as I'm aware, they've taken that out, and chests spawn frequently on the map. Also, I've read that you get every item in the game from a chest. From what I've seen, that's true too, because every time I pick up a skill or spell from a chest, it just blows my mind. Now, for those of you who played the original, you'll probably be with me on this for a pro. If you hate pulling out your map every few minutes to try and figure out how the hell you were going to get somewhere on the vast map, they added another excellent new feature. Now all you have to do is check out where you are on the map. Now all you have to do to check out where you are on the map is to push the L3 button, and a map overlay shows across the screen. This is super helpful, especially since the maps tend to be so large you can easily get turned around without realizing it, especially in between battles. Which kind of leads me to another big pro for the game, which is the autosave. Seriously, with the battle style, it is easy to die for silly reasons. But now that you don't have to restart everything you did over the last 3 hours, it's far less of an inconvenience. One of the last big pros I want to talk about is the story. This is one of the few Final Fantasy games where you actually get to play a group that's not the heroes. Well, I guess I shouldn't say they're not the heroes, but they aren't heroes, period. You could even perceive the group as being the bad guys, honestly. Now, some of you might be saying, "What? Fox, I played Final Fantasy XII, and you are the best people. You help free the world." Sure, you do well, but only as an afterthought, and that was actually the main antagonist of the story's goal all along. If you take a step out of your protag shoes to look back on the story is that you're helping a whiny woman to assume power over a kingdom because she came from the correct ballsack. She never does anything good till the very end of the story. The entire time, she's just like, "This is mine, and I am owed this." She even enlists the help of thieves to assume back her throne. The villain, despite using shady politics, just overthrows a theocracy for the sake of saving the world. Hell, the main bad guy for most of it, Vayne, even expresses remorse for the circumstances. He's really the unsung hero of the story. Anyways, now we're going to move on to the cons. And for the first con, I'm going to have to say the graphics. The game was stretched to widescreen, which might be the cause of some of the problems, but honestly, I feel like Square Enix was a bit lazy with this. Don't get me wrong, the actual cutscenes look gorgeous. However, every time there's a scene, like a pseudo cutscene that plays out in the actual game engine, they look like demon-possessed dolls. Really wish they could have put the extra effort in on this, especially since 90% of the pros were actually done several years ago in the Internet Games International release. So, like I said, feels a bit lazy. And also the last con I want to mention for this game, of course, the silly gambit system. I don't mind being able to tweak AI, but then that's literally the focus of your game. It's a hindrance. Seriously, you even have to buy certain commands from the shop. And even then, there's not really enough to make it as natural as press a button to use spell. This is by far the worst feature in any Final Fantasy game so far, and is the cause of all deaths within the game. Seriously, constantly you'll be getting killed by silly stuff your character should have accommodated for because of the gambits you set. If you're not aware of that gambit system, it's really just setting up AI command prompts for your characters, such as heal self when HP falls below 30%. If you control the character who aren't your leader, then they go through those command prompts. And the main focus of this, American fantasy football RPG. Alright, so with all of that out of the way, we can have a conversation of review. If you've come to this video to find out if you should get the game, I would say, hell yeah! This game is better than its original. It has an awesome story, it's part of an amazing world with lore that's easily understood, and most of all, it's only $50 brand new right now. Most brand new games people are throwing away $60 on aren't even half as good. Plus, this is a complete game. No bugs, no patches required, just start up and go. Don't have to worry about having a subscription, don't have to worry about how this is only 1/3 of a game, so you'll have to give the company another $200 to find out what happens. Just play and have fun. the way games were meant to be. The way a lot of people have forgotten. Anyways, that's enough old man talk. Seriously, if you don't like the original, I'm right there with you. As I mentioned, it's one of the 2 Final Fantasy games I didn't want to play. I'm enjoying the time I've spent into this one so far, though, and plan to complete it. Hell, there's even trophies in it now, so there's another con for you. If you didn't play it before because you weren't old enough, give it a try. Find out what an actual story is. And if you're sitting on the sidelines because you don't want to pay $50 for a remake, this is seriously far better than a remake. They changed up the core gameplay. Plus, let's be honest, you paid much more for far less. Hell, Final Fantasy XV is this game's lesser in nearly every way. Alright, well that's going to be all for my review. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you found it helpful. Be sure to like and comment on this video. It's still free, you know, so do that. Also, if you enjoyed it or want to see more like it, be sure to subscribe. I do have a few other video game reviews on this channel, and even some retro video game reviews on this channel, so if you're interested, check those out. But most important is that you shouldn't forget to take care of yourselves. Never forget to take care of yourselves.